welcome back to the GBC. I am your host, Nash Colbert. Today, we are talking with the freshwater fishing legend himself, walleye whisperer, aka Ted Takasaki. Thanks for coming on, Ted.
Hey, you betcha. It's great to be here for sure.
Yeah. So maybe give the viewers kind of a background of how you got started in your career and what led up to that.
Boy, you got about 6 hours.
We got time.
I think the biggest thing is I worked for Hewlett-Packard for about 18 years, and at Hewlett-Packard is where I met a friend of mine, John Campbell. We were just out of college and liked to fish. We didn't do a whole lot of it at that time. I mean, I'd never seen a walleye until I graduated from college.
Wow.
And so we started taking these fishing classes from a gentleman by the name of Spence Petros. So he taught this fishing class every Wednesday night for like 7 weeks. We liked it so much that we took it the next year. All right, same class, same slides. Back then they were all overhead projectors, so he just had slides, and we'd carry his projector out from the hotel that we were at, and so we liked it so much we took it the next year, same slides, same. Then the next year after that, I think we took that class 6 years in a row, same class, but it taught us a lot to get started, and after that we entered our first professional tournament. It was the Masters Walleye Circuit out of Spring Valley, Illinois, on the Illinois River, and we didn't catch a fish. But out of the, I think 200 teams, like 10 teams caught a fish. At that year, they had 10 inches of rain in Chicago come down that river. I mean, there were floating cows, refrigerators, the whole works, and you could see your jig about 1.5 inches below the surface. So not very many people caught a fish. We were tied for 12th or something like that out of 200 teams. So we thought, well, all right, we didn't do very good in this first one, but we had a reason why we didn't do well. So the next year, or the next tournament we decided to fish was this lake off of Lake Michigan. And we didn't catch a fish in that one either. But again, that was another one of those. It was a cold water lake that connected to Lake Michigan, very clear, very cold. And out of the 170 teams, I think like 20 teams caught a fish.
Wow.
We didn't catch a fish in that one either. So that was our first 2 tournaments I ever fished. So the next year we decided, well, I don't think we're that bad. Let's try it again, but we're going to fish them all. So we fished them all. We ended up 3rd in Team of the Year standings, and then went to the championship. And my father passed away the day before the first day of the tournament. So I had to go home and help my mom take care of arrangements. So I missed the first day. My partner went out and fished, and he actually called me. He says, "Hey, I'm on fish." Because I had to leave the day before the tournament, I guess. And he was fishing the day before. And he said, "Hey, I'm on them. I can catch them. You go ahead and take care of your mom, and I'll fish the first day by myself." And at the time, the tournament rules were 10 fish in the boat. 5, so and the personal limit was 10 fish. Mm-hmm. So we figured, well, John can fish the tournament. He was on them. He'd catch 10 fish, weigh them, and then I'll come the second day. Well, what we didn't know, when he first went out, I went home, and then he went out, and as he was going out, they said, well, you can catch and keep 10 fish, but since you're the only one in the boat, you can only keep 5. So he caught 10, came in, weighed 5. I got there the second day. It wasn't as good the second day. We caught 8 together, weighed 8, and then another one was weighed 6. The third day was weighed 6. And it turns out that first tournament that we did there was for the circuit. we ended up in third, outside of first by about a pound and a quarter.
Oh,
And so, if they just let him weigh the fish that he caught by himself,
right.
we would have won that tournament easily, the very first big tournament. So that got me pretty pumped up. That's why I decided at that point, even though I was getting paid by Hewlett-Packard to sell computer systems, I wanted to be a professional fisherman at that point.
You were talking about how you could still sell while fishing tournaments.
Back then at Hewlett-Packard, as an outside salesman, I was over quota. When you're over quota, they didn't really pay attention to what you did or how you did it. And so I was doing really, really well. We had 6 weeks of vacation by that point. And so we decided to fish all these tournaments. And so it actually ended up, the next year we fished them all. We ended up in third overall. And then the championship, we got second. And that pretty much solidified my desire to be a professional fisherman. Never seen the crowds that we paraded in front of. It was a indoor weigh-in at the Dubuque Civic Center. And so we would roll our boats in there and lift the fish out of the live well, and everybody would cheer and scream. And that pretty much got me excited to fish full time. I mean, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to fish full time. And so when I won the PWT championship after that, because we split up as a team and then went on our own as individual, because that's right when the Professional Walleye Trail started up. When I won that championship, and again, paraded the boats around and all the people are screaming, that's when I decided I wanted to be a professional fisherman. Hewlett-Packard was a great job, but that was just a job. And so I did everything I could. I called all my sponsors and, said, want to try to up the ante here. And one of my first sponsors was Lindy Fishing Tackle. I called the president up, said I won this big tournament, and really excited because I wanted on a Lindy Fuzzy Grub. And he said, well, Ted, that's great. By the way, I'm retiring. I said, retiring? What are you talking about? And just right off the bat, I said, who are you interviewing? He said, we're interviewing right now. I said, well, what about me? And he said, what about you? I said, well, I have a lot of experience fishing, obviously. I've been very successful selling computer systems and managing teams of people to sell these computer systems. I think I could do the job. And so he said, I'll tell you what, I'll get you an interview with the board of directors. I interviewed with all the owners of the company. It was the board of directors. And unbelievably, they hired me. So I left Hewlett-Packard, ran the company for 10 years. I took their advertising budget from primarily print and turned it mostly into television. And obviously part of television I was good at. So I was in front of the camera a lot. In fact, I increased the budget for television. And I mean, in 10 years, we doubled revenue, quadruple profit, sold the company to Pradco, which is a larger fishing company. And after that, I could fish full time.
Wow. What's like a lesson that you learned in business in those, that first 10, 15 years of your career that really helped you?
I would say the number one motto that I live by is that all things considered equal, friends buy from friends. So if you're selling, in fact, it doesn't matter whether you're selling a product, you're selling yourself, or you're making friends, or you're meeting people, you want to treat everybody like you'd like to be treated. And so I think that, again, all things considered equal, friends buy from friends. So given that, you make everybody your friend, and you have things that you can offer them. There are things that they can offer you. And I believe that that's probably the model that got me to where I am today. Because, even at Hewlett-Packard, I had a lot of friends that, I did a lot of favors for. They did favors for me. That's how I made my quota each year. And then when I was at Lindy, same thing. A lot of the outdoor writers and television producers that I worked with, they were all friends. I shot television shows for all the major, and we advertised with them. So when you advertise, you're going to be on the show. So that's how we increased the revenue. I was able to reduce a lot of SKUs within the company, reduce the inventory, so therefore our turns and inventory was better utilized. And so in addition to increasing the revenue, we were much more profitable as well. So after 10 years of that, part of the deal that when I first came on Lindy, I was offered to buy some shares to buy into the company. I did that. And so after 10 years, you double revenue, quadruple profit, you sell the company for a lot more than it was when I bought in. So at that point, after Hewlett-Packard and Lindy Fishing Tackle, I was able to fish full time, and just took all those same lessons that I learned to sponsors, to recruiting sponsors and cultivating the sponsors' products. And one thing for sure, when it comes to sponsors, you don't keep sponsors unless you have an impact on revenue, on sales. And that's pretty much what I've always done, is just concentrated on sales.
If there were, in today's world, there's a lot of people trying to get sponsors, fishermen, athletes. If you had a tip for them to get their foot in the door to these sponsors, what would you say?
Increase your visibility, name brand. You got to build your brand. And I think that's what I've done for 20 something years. And to be in this business full time is to build a brand and treat everybody like you'd like to be treated. And again, friends buy from friends. So I've tried to, treat everybody like I like to be treated. And that's how you develop friends. And all my sponsors that I have today are all the key contacts are friends.
Yeah.
And so I think after 30 years of this business, I feel that that's probably the number one motto that I live by, is treat everybody else like you'd like to be treated.
Have you ever ran into issues, say, with, a vast number, with so many different sponsors, and how do you navigate which ones to kind of pick and which ones to not?
Well, I think you can't have two competing sponsors in the same marketplace. So I would always just, you need a boat sponsor, you need an engine sponsor, you need a trolling motor sponsor, you need electronics sponsor, you need a jig sponsor, you need a rod sponsor, a line sponsor. So you have different categories, and never the two shall meet, because you can't have competing sponsors.
Yeah.
And what's happened in the fishing industry is there's been a consolidation of companies. Small companies get bought out by bigger companies, and that's been the challenge. Because now, instead of 5 or 10 companies that you have sponsors with, one company's bought 4 of them. So now you work with fewer companies because they have a lot of different product categories. And that's been the challenge over the last 5 to 10 years, that this consolidation in the industry and the business has been occurring, and it's made it very, very difficult for professional anglers such as myself. I guess I'm almost 70. It's probably time for me to take my boat and sail into the sunset at some point. And so, unfortunately, the younger guys getting into this business are finding the same thing. They have one big company that's consolidated a lot of small companies, so the opportunities for sponsorship gets tougher and tougher.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what's been happening. Now there's still some small companies that have been very innovative with new products, but they're few and far between.
You've done an incredible job at keeping your brand consistent through your career. How do you do that when weighing so many different things? You president of a company, professional fisherman, all these things. How do you keep your brand the way you want, to keep it?
treat everybody just like you'd like to be treated. When I gas up my car or my truck, and somebody comes up and says, "Hi, I saw you doing this or on this TV show, or I love your tips on YouTube or on Facebook," I take 5 minutes and chat with them. If they want an autograph, I give them an autograph.
Being genuine with them.
Oh, I mean, it's no different. If I want to chat with somebody, and you want to shake their hand, like one time I went to a golf tournament, and Jack Nicklaus was walking by. I said, "Man, I love your game," and he says, "Thank you very much." He shook my hand. Took the 5 seconds to do that, and it made a big impression on me.
Makes an impact.
And I decided at that point that it's important for me as a public figure to, again, take the time. I mean, there are times when I'm really busy,
Right.
and have to get to wherever I have to get to, a lake or a sponsored commitment or a sports show, and I'm gassing up the truck, and somebody comes up and wants to talk. I got to take the 3-5 minutes that it takes to answer those questions and to be a good person. I think that's the important thing, is just being a good person and treat everybody like you'd like to be treated.
Yeah.
Friends buy from friends.
Friends buy from friends. On a little different topic, how have you seen the fishing industry change? I know we've seen massive changes. We continue to see with technology. How does that change the way the fishing game is had, and how have you seen it?
Well, I mean, not in addition to the consolidation we talked about, all the small companies getting consolidated into the bigger companies, is technology. Mapping, GPS, being able to, have an outline of the lake with all the structure and humps and points and everything else, you can go right to those spots. So that was the first technology bump that we got as fishermen that really helps us know where we're at, how far we need to go, how much time it takes to get back, and if you're right exactly on the point, the tip of the point or the hump or wherever you need to be. And there's little subtle differences that fish collect to. So you have to know where these small little spots are. So that's probably the first piece of technology that I think has made a big difference. And now the last 3 to 4 years, 5 years, forward-facing sonar has certainly changed everything about how we fish. Trolling is no longer the preferred method. I mean, I've been a troller for my entire career. And now with forward-facing sonar, I have to scrap everything that I've done for the last 25, 30 years and learn a different way to fish. And that's spotting the fish 15, 20, 30 feet, 50 feet away from the boat, and then casting at those fish and no longer trolling. And so that's been a big shift for me. It's been the biggest challenge that I'll face in my career. And being almost 70, it's making it a lot more difficult for me. You have to make on the water and quick decisions. And I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this term called brain fog, but it's real. It truly is real. I mean, there's some things that I remember from years ago, but there's some things that I remember just from a few days back that all of a sudden I'm saying, what was it that I was going to do? I mean, and I'm sure everybody has those moments, but the older you get, this brain fog is certainly something that's real. And, so I'm, 70, that's retirement age.
Yeah. Sail into the sunset, right?
But I mean, I'm hoping I've got, one more year. I'm hoping that I have a good season, and I'll work as hard as I can at that. And I've got good friends of mine that I'm working with and sharing some information. And so hopefully this will be a great year.
You have, I know a little bit about it. I'm sure you've told the story a million times, but do you still have the record?
Oh, yes. As far as a tournament weighed fish tournament, walleye weighed tournament, a legitimate weighed tournament, a big circuit tournament, that weighs the fish and not catch, record, release. Because some tournament circuits, you catch a fish, you take a picture, you put it on a ruler, and that fish, those inches then are converted to pounds. As far as a weighed tournament where you catch 5 fish, you bring 5 fish into the launch site or the weigh-in, and they weigh the fish. And as far as a 5 fish limit weighed tournament record, I believe that I still own the all-time record of 53.2 pounds on 5 walleyes.
Wow.
In one day. So I guess if there's a claim to fame, that's my one thing that has stood the test of time since 2002.
With you holding that all-time record of the, greatest weight on 5 fish, ever weighed at the same time, what was the story behind that? What led to that day?
Well, it's interesting. I've been catching some nice fish during practice.
Where were you at?
I was on Lake Erie.
Okay.
And this was a year class of fish that were very big. I mean, you catch a 29 incher, it had a chance of being 10 pounds, which normally you don't, when you catch a 29 incher, they're usually 8 or 9 pounds. Mm-hmm. But this particular year, these fish were thick all the way from their head down to the tail. I couldn't put my hand all the way around the tail of some of these walleyes. And there was one point in time where I went through an area, and I was trolling at the time. All 4 boards went back, reeled each one in, put them in the bottom boat, next one in, put in the bottom. I had 4 walleyes that were all 29 to 30 inches, and I couldn't tell which one I should put in the live well. And at that tournament, we could call the fish, so we could put the fish in there. But I had 4 of them that I couldn't tell, so I had to weigh each one, and I'd already had a couple fish in there, and so it actually turned out all 4 of those went into live well. The 2 that I had before went out, and I just kept upgrading from there. And it's just one of those magical days with the right fish on the right lake. And as far as I know, it's still the all-time tournament record for a one-day catch, 5 fish limit of 53.2 pounds.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. It's hard to catch a 9 or 10 pounder,
let alone
11, 12s. I mean,
what was the pivotal time in your career when your brand took off? What was that?
Well, probably when I was at Lindy Fishing Tackle. We started, when I started the company, we were a $5 million gross revenue company. By the time I left the company, we were a $10 million gross revenue and had quadruple profit. I'd taken the budget that they normally used. They usually took 10% of gross revenue and put it into marketing. I took that 10%, and instead of most of that being print and the rest of it being everything else, I put 80% into television shows and 20% into everything else. Mm-hmm. The biggest challenge there was that one of the shareholders was the owner of was the owner of a PR company, and they did all the ad placements for Lindy. So when I first got there, and he was a shareholder too, so I had to, he was on the board of directors and a shareholder. I had to have a conversation with him saying, I'm going to take the majority of what he earned from the company, because he placed all the ads. Lindy paid his company to create the ads and to place the ads. When I got there, I took most of that majority of the budget and put it all in television advertising, and then hired an in-staff. Back then, that was right when Adobe and Photoshop and everything else was starting to take place. So I bought a computer system, hired a designer, and we designed all our ads in-house. Oh, wow. And marketing materials. So essentially took, I'd say probably about $800,000 worth of business away from a shareholder and brought it all in-house and put most of that into our net profit. That was probably the toughest decision I had to make, because I get there and I'm telling a shareholder who was a vendor who was getting paid by the company, and I had to tell him that he's going to take a pay cut as the president and a fellow shareholder. He was a partner.
Right.
Because I bought into the company as well.
Yeah.
So I'd say out of all the things that I did over the course of my career, that's probably the most difficult, telling one of your partners that you're not going to create ads for us anymore and place those ads. We're going to hire somebody in-house to create them, to place them, and we're going to buy a computer system for him to do that.
Right. But that worked, and that's what, skyrocketed.
It made a big difference, a big difference, because at that point, now if we introduced a new product, he would get on the computer and build a great ad right on the bat. See, when you have an outside PR and ad company, they create a concept, send you the concept, and back then it wasn't like email. They actually printed it, sent it to his office. We had to pass it around, look at it, make a few changes, send it back. They'd make those changes and then send it back.
Inefficient. Took a long time.
It was very inefficient back then. So having this creative in-house, this gentleman that we hired, and he's still a friend of mine today, and that was almost 30 years ago. But he's still a friend today. He was pivotal, and now he does it. He's a freelancer now. He does that for a lot of other fishing companies. So we helped him catapult his career, and it changed the way we did business. I mean, it changed the way we advertised, and in fact, we took a lot of that print advertisement away and put it into television. And now today, a lot of it is into social media, would be if I was still at the company, the Lindy Fishing Tackle Company. And we were able, after 10 years of doubled revenue, quadruple profit, we sold the company to a company called Pradco. They make bomber lures, they make booyah, they make a lot of different tackle company, a lot of fishing tackle.
Yeah.
So in the end, looking back, made a lot of good moves, got lucky. You got to get, you got to get lucky. I mean, you got to be in the right place at the right time with the right people.
Yeah.
And I had a great team. So
what are one or two things that you have to have in your boat today every single time you're on the water?
PFD, flotation device. It's all a system. If you didn't have an engine that got you from point A to point B, you wouldn't do very good. If you don't have a trolling motor that allows you to precisely place the boat where you need to, if you're vertical or you're casting, or even if you're trolling, I use a concept called four-wheel drive trolling, where I pull with the trolling motor, the front trolling motor, and then I push with the kicker in the back. So if you didn't have the trolling motor, it'd be pretty tough to do it. The kicker is important. The electronics are important because they tell you where the fish are. And I know that there's one thing for sure, is that you cannot catch fish where there's no fish. I mean,
That's true.
I start almost every seminar that I do with that topic, because you can't catch fish where there's no fish. So why are you fishing where there's no fish? And these electronics today are incredible, truly incredible. I mean, Humminbird has pioneered side imaging and looking out into the distance, because they purchased a company called Bottomline, and they came out with the first side finder machine that you just put it in the hole, and then you twirl it around, and then it tells you there's something in that direction 50 feet away. It was called the side finder. They purchased that technology many years ago, and now you have Mega Live Mega Life 2, different versions of it. And now all we do is drive around looking for fish, and when you mark a fish, you cast at them.
Right.
And now you can actually see the reaction that fish has. If you throw a lure past them and they make a move, then you know you need to throw back at them and maybe go a little slower, maybe a twitch, maybe a change in color.
Right.
And so forward-facing sonar has, without a doubt, changed the way we fish. Humminbird today now is, they're the leader in mapping technology. The little chips that we put into our boat allows us to know exactly where the boat is and what kind of structure we're on. Mega Live and forward-facing sonar tells us where to cast, how far to cast, and the reaction you're getting from the fish.
Right.
Our boats have big engines. I've got a Lund. I just picked up, in fact, a Lund 2175 Pro V, and it's got a Mercury Verado, Pro XS Verado, and it's a V10, which it takes that boat and jumps it up and is very, very good in gas mileage, economy. So that's an important component to the boat. And the kicker allows me to throw slow if I need to. So the whole boat, there's no one part of the boat that's more important than the other parts because they all combine to get you from point A to point B. And boat control is the most important thing when it comes to fishing, is being able to control the boat where you want, place the cast or the lures where they need to be.
What about something that somebody might not think of, something that somebody may forget, like to even, buy it or bring it along that you have every day, that either makes your fishing more enjoyable or helps you catch fish?
Cooler. Stay hydrated. I mean, I know that I came home from a tournament once and I wasn't feeling well, and I told my partner, I said, you might have to take over. And as the second I got out of the truck, I laid down on the ground, and then next thing I knew, I was in a hospital bed with IVs attached to me. So as much as I like to go out in hot water and I can take the heat and everything else, I do try, since that happened, I do try to stay as hydrated as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of people, and the funny thing is I usually don't make a lot of sandwiches or eat a whole lot, but I have a good friend of mine that I'm kind of teaming up with this next year. He always brought sandwiches and something to eat because he's probably about 250, 300, and likes to eat. So so it was always great having him as a partner to keep me on track, to make sure that I'm drinking, to eat, and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. You're known as a friend in the fishing industry. What advice would you give to somebody else in the fishing industry trying to get into it today?
Boy, that's a great question, because that's changed a lot over the last 20, 25 years. The consolidation and combining of all these smaller companies into bigger companies makes it even more difficult. And it's not so much what you do in the tournaments, it's how you treat others and to try to be visible to almost anybody that is watching you. And social media has changed all that. You don't need to be a tournament professional anymore. You can be a social media guru and develop a big fan base and teach people the things that you know. And one thing for sure, you don't offend anybody, and you never say that something works if it doesn't. I mean, that's the kiss of death. If you promote products, you got to promote products that you believe in and that you use, and you have to treat every single person like they're your best friend. because they could be at some point in time.
Do you think it's worth going, staying local and going after some of these, more local, smaller companies, or do you think it's worth trying to, save all your effort for the big ones?
I went after national companies first because I was at Hewlett-Packard, and I went after fishing tackle companies because back then they were fragmented. Today, they're a lot more consolidated, a little bit tougher to get in and see these people, return a call. There is a big tackle company or big tackle trade show called ICAST that probably changed the way that I, recruited new sponsors. But as far as a person getting started, without a doubt now would be going to local companies, people in your hometown that want to brand themselves and get to know them, get to know their business, get to know how they can fit into your business and what you can do for them. A lot of guys might think that, hey, I'm a professional fisherman, you should come to me. Well, that doesn't work. You have to go out to these folks and give them something that that affects their business. That raises the bar, that increases the number of likes or looks or the people coming into their business. And now with social media, you have a lot of social media stars that they haven't fished a tournament. They don't have to fish tournaments. They just have to be a social media expert. I went the other way around. I started in the tournaments, and now I'm trying to be a social media expert, which is it's a challenge. There's no doubt. It's every day you got to do something. Right. You have to either respond to something or produce something, and content today is probably the most difficult task for me. Is coming up with something new, something different, something that somebody would want to watch.
How did you get comfortable on camera?
I think doing a lot of seminars helped me in the beginning. And I took a class called Dale Carnegie. There's a class called Dale Carnegie, how to make friends and influence people. And one of the tips that I always use is you look a person right in the face and you're talking to that person. So in a crowd, I'll look at somebody and talk to them. I'll make a point over here, I'll make a point over here, make a point over here, and I'm looking up. And, you make eye contact as much as you possibly can. And then you just talk to the camera like you're talking to somebody else. That's the switch from just having a conversation and being in front of a group of people and talking to each individual person, and then treat the camera just like you're a friend.
Give us a young Ted story before fishing in Hewlett-Packard.
Well, my father took me fishing initially, and that's usually the case. There's studies that have been shown that if you don't take a kid fishing by the age of 10, the likelihood of that kid fishing as an adult drops dramatically. So given that, if you're a grandfather or you're a father or, take your kid fishing, take your grandkids fishing, take your neighbor's kids fishing, grab a kid off the street if you have to and take them fishing.
Right.
Well, that might not be legal, but take a kid fishing, and then when you do take the kids fishing, make sure that they have fun. Make sure that you go to a lake that where there's a lot of fish. Maybe fishing for walleye wouldn't be the first event that you want to take.
Smaller fish.
Right. Make sure they're catching a lot of fish, and then when they do catch a fish, make sure that you get excited. Whether it's a big carp, a little bluegill, a catfish, get excited. If it's their first fish, take a picture. And then I always make sure that I have the camera real close, and they have to hold the fish out far away. Right. Guess what that does?
Makes it look bigger.
It makes the fish look bigger. And then if it's their first fish, then you want to take that picture to the camera shop and have it blown up into an 8.5 by 11. Right? You frame that. You put that in the living room where all the relatives and friends can see it, and you come up there and say, "Look at what Johnny just caught." Right? This is a big fish. And then, when Johnny's standing there right next to you, I mean, he's pretty excited, right? That's my fish.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go fishing again.
Yeah.
So make sure that day with Johnny is productive as best as you can, that, there's a lot of drinks and snacks, and if he wants to play with the leeches or the minnows, let him play with the leeches and the minnows.
Yeah.
You don't ever raise your voice when there's kids in the boat. They cannot do anything wrong. If they want to come in, you take them in. And that's usually what I did with my daughter. I mean, she enjoyed fishing. If she wanted to play with the leeches, she'd take a stick and put that in the leech bucket. And when that leech swam over the stick, she said, "Hey, Dad, look at what I just did. I trained the leech to jump." Right? So that's awesome, Christy. Keep on doing it.
Yeah.
And then when you have a fish on, you let her reel it in.
Yeah.
That day when you take the kids fishing, that day is for the kids, not for you.
On that note, you like to use a lot of stories, when, in your seminars, online, and just face to face. How have stories helped shape your career?
I think that that in itself, it's just no different than any career. You're talking to people, and people have experiences too. So, when you can get, share an experience that you've had, hopefully it gets them, closer to you, and they share their experiences with you. And so, as far as getting to wherever you want to go, all things considered, friends buy from friends. And my goal is to try to get every person to be a friend, and try to find something that's in common with the other person, and then take it from there. And once you get to know that person, everybody's we all walk on the same earth. We all live in the same country, whether you're Democrat or Republican or independent, or you go to church, you don't go to church. We're only here for a short period of time. We need to do everything we can to make that short period of time and every day to be the best day you can make it. And I kind of live by that model. I try not to get upset. I try not to raise my voice. I try to, anybody that comes up to me at a gas station, I'll take the time to share a story or give them a tip or just make their day better. That's really all we're here for. We're here to try to make everybody's day better. And if we do that, I think that's how you're successful in anything you want to do. It doesn't have to be fishing. It could be selling widgets. When I was working at Hewlett-Packard, I took this big 100-pound laser printer from lab to lab, and every lab that I went into, I'd chat with them and find out what they're doing and how they do it, and showed them a device that would make their day better and print their reports quicker, and so it's really pretty interesting how it's pretty easy to be successful in life just by treating everybody like you'd like to be treated.
Talk to us a little bit about how you learned, about these walleyes and what they do and don't like, and how you studied them. Kind of, how did you do that?
Well, when I first started, my dad took me bass fishing and catfish and bullhead fishing. That was when, from grade school through high school. I met a friend of mine in college at my fraternity. His name is John Campbell. He liked to fish, and he fished a lot when he was younger. I didn't fish a whole lot in high school, but my dad did take me fishing when I was younger. So Johnny and I got to know each other at a fraternity, and he really got me into fishing. He's the one that we went to Okoboji a lot. We went to Kentucky Lake. We would take, when we graduated and started working for Hewlett-Packard together, we would take our vacations and start doing these tournaments. Wasn't until the tournaments that you really learn, what these fish do and how they do it. When we were at Hewlett-Packard, we took these fishing classes from Spence Petros. He was the editor of Fishing Facts magazine back then. And he had a class every week on Wednesday for like 7 or 8 weeks in a row. Took that class with John, really took notes. He would, we would carry his slide projector out and set up his stuff. By the second year, we got to know him real well. By the third year, we would, maybe get together with him at his house. And we took that class for 7 years in a row. Same class, same slides. And by that 7th year, I mean, I got to know Spence really well. Mm-hmm. And he was the one that got me the job at Lindy, Fish and Tackle. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know anything about fishing until then, really. I mean, we would hire a few guides here and there, and but we didn't really know how to fish until we took these fishing classes from Spence. So, and then at that point, when I knew I liked doing it, I would go to every sports show I could and just attend every seminar I could. I mean, over and over and over again. I mean, you think about it, most of the things that you hear and try to remember, you don't remember. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it took me 7 years of seminars from by Spence Petros. Wow. And then reading all the magazines and watching television shows. And now today, we didn't have YouTube or the internet back then. I mean, today it's so much easier because you don't have to go anywhere. Right. I mean, you can sit there in front of your computer screen, or even now today, the television, because televisions are computers. Right. And so you can just sit there and you can watch YouTube videos till you're blue in the face. I mean, right. I don't know what would have happened if I had YouTube videos back then. Right. But, that's then, this is now. I'm almost 70, and it's this technology has really got me all screwed up. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if streaming is something you watch or something you drive a canoe through. So it's all different for me. And even though I worked at worked at Hewlett-Packard company for 18 years, it's a lot different now than it was when I worked there. Because I haven't been at Hewlett-Packard for, probably 15 years, 12, 15 years, something like that.
Wow. What are a couple brands throughout your history that you believe in wholeheartedly and have had the best relationship with?
Well, number one, my boat sponsor, Lund Boats, has been a partner of mine for many, many years. I've only had 2 boat sponsors, and Lund has been the last one here for the last, it's 12, 15 years, something like that. What I love about Lund Boats is that it's a big company, but yet a small company. It's a company that, their slogan is fishing boats built and designed by fishermen. Mm-hmm. So the people that make the decisions with the company are fishermen. Mm-hmm. So therefore, when they build a boat and they take that boat out, they're able to see where the electronics should be, how does it react on the water, mm-hmm. Are we missing something here, or are we, is it failing here? They make those design changes within the company because it's a company that builds boats for fishermen, designed by fishermen. Mm-hmm. So how can you beat that?
Can't beat it. Some
of these boat companies are designed by people that don't even live in the country,
right?
Or that haven't even really boated much. Right. They're sitting in front of a computer with a CAD system, computer-aided design system, and building a boat. Right. Pretty hard to do that, I think, in today's environment because people are pretty skeptical in general. And so if the boat doesn't perform or the things aren't where they're supposed to be, right. They know that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what's made Lund Boats different for me. And that's why I love the people at the company. I love the boats that they build and they design. I came on board originally in their fiberglass division, and now I alternate between fiberglass and aluminum. because they sell a lot of aluminum boats, and I needed to know how aluminum boat from Lund Boats reacts, since that's where they started. They started aluminum and then introduced fiberglass. That's how I got to know Lund Boat Company. And I believe that they design and they build the best boats for all fishermen, right? They got small little boats that you can load into the lake by yourself without a trailer, okay? They have flat bottom boats, aluminum boats that, you can go out to the river and go up and down on the river with a small little 15 horse outboard or 25 horse outboard.
Right.
They have medium-sized boats that are family-oriented, that the families can enjoy, because jump seats in the back and comfortable lounge seats in the front, but then they got casting, fishing boats that are for hardcore professionals that have casting decks in the front and casting decks in the back, and kicker motors, and you can have a big engine up to 400 horse.
Right.
So they are a fishing boat company built by fishermen and designed by fishermen. That's what I like. That's what I love about Lund Boat Company.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the guys that make the decisions in that company, I'm good friends with and have become very close and get to know them really well. I go to some of their family events. Some of them came to my 60th birthday party that I had. Several of them came down for that. So it's things like that that I think set companies aside. It's relationships in business that are important. And I've been at it for almost 30 years, and I set out to be a professional fisherman back then. That's what I wanted to be. That's what every day I thought about how I'm going to get there. I would write my goals and put them on the refrigerator. I would take the classes from Dale Carnegie. I would take the marketing classes at Hewlett-Packard. And I was successful at Hewlett-Packard. I felt like I did the things I needed to do, to sell a lot of computer systems. And I think from there, I learned a lot of things. And I think that now I believe that I've accomplished and done everything that I ever set out to do. I wanted to be a professional fisherman. I wanted to make a living and a career and earn enough money to feed a family and raise a family and to do the things I want to do as a fisherman. And I'm very blessed, very fortunate, very lucky. I've met a lot of great people in my life, and can't think of anything that I regret.
Wow, that's awesome. I think that's a great way to end this interview. We want to thank Ted for coming on. I hope you at home got some insight. Share this with somebody who might get some value, and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you.